Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Morgan from RacerX Performance Tuning. We got a rainy Sunday morning here in Atlanta, so it's a good day to do a little troubleshooting, a little tuning work. And what we're after today is an interesting phenomenon. Working with our customer with a DodgeStealth on an Haltech Elite 2500 unit. And what we're running into here is this little phenomenon where we're getting to a very, very rich state in between gear shifts. So we're trying to figure out where this is coming from. Not sure if this is a tuning issue or it is some sort of mechanical issue. We're not sure that we've seen this before, but it has been kind of creeping into things lately and causing us some issues. So here we are looking at the Megalog Viewer from Haltech, and just have a few swim lanes here, and probably the ones we want to focus in on right here on the bottom, this fourth swim lane, last one on the bottom here, where we got the throttle position. So we're kind of going through the gears here. This looks like a second gear, third gear pull. So we can see we're at wide open throttle here. And then we're going to come off the throttle and then back on the throttle and then off the throttle, okay? So what we're looking at right here is this part here where we're coming off the throttle between this gear shift. And at the top here we've got manifold pressure and RPM. So RPM is the orange line. We can see that while we're on full throttle, we're grinding up through the RPM range, and we're going to come down and go back up. Now, we were looking at right here, third swim lane, we've got dual wide bands here, and we can see what's going to happen here is, we've got a target of about 10.5. This is a 93 octane, 93 octane target. So one wide band is reading 10.4, the other one's 10.3, so a little bit rich on our target, but generally right there within the range where we want to be. But as you notice here, our O2 target's gonna go up as it should between the shifts, but our O2s on both banks are gonna just rich out. So here we are off throttle, and I mean these numbers are ridiculously low. We got a 6.3 AFR on one bank, 7.3 AFR on the other. That's really far and below anything we would expect. So finally, we recover, we get back on throttle, and then we're kind of back to where we should be. Got a 12.2 target, we're running 12.0 in one, 11.9 in the other. Life is good. But this thing right here where we're between shifts is kind of really interesting. We should not be running this rich considering we're off throttle. So we flip over to Megalog Viewer. Essentially we're looking at the same data, just in slightly different swim lanes, but at the end of the day we're looking at the same phenomena. So here in the second swim lane we've got throttle position, and that's in purple here, so we knew we were wide open throttle here, RPM here. Here's our AFR target and our actual AFRs. And then once again we come off throttle and our AFRs are falling through the floor. Here we see that 6.752 AFR on bank number one. The one thing that's interesting to note, we'll come back to look at this later, is this. I also keep track of our base fuel tuning. So this is coming from the VE table, and we see that we're at 71.8% on volumetric efficiency. So that's going to be important to look at. Everything else here is pretty much as expected. Nothing here is untoward in the rest of the data log. Flipping over to our table generator. So here I'm going to filter out things for just when we're wide open throttle. So we got RPM on the x-axis and boost and vacuum on the y-axis. And right now I'm using a formula here for what we refer to as AFR error rate. So we want this number to be about at 100. The closer we get to 100, the more we are exactly on target for our AFR target. When we're above 100, we are rich by that percentage, and below 100, we are lean by that percentage. So here we see we're running, at the 20 psi, between 17 and 20 psi. We're running an average of about anywhere from 2, probably to 4% rich. So we'll try to address that, and we can see that's pretty much consistent throughout the rest of the table. So as we're ramping up to get to our boost levels, generally running about 2 to 4% rich. So we'll make an adjustment in the base table to address that. Let's just take a look as well at our short-term feedback. We've got this broken down into two banks. So we'll look at short-term on bank 1. we can see it's pulling out again about 1 to 3%, a little bit 4% over here. And then on bank 2, it's probably be very similar, where we are also pulling out, yeah, about 1 to 2%. So the short-term fuel trims coming in, trying to clean things up a little bit. None of this is really drastic, but nonetheless, we'll try to get things closer to our targets and make sure that that's the way we want it to be. Okay, so finally, we'll take a look at the same data log, but this time we'll open it up in Haltech NSP, so we're able to look at a bunch of data all at the same time. So having opened the data log, we're going to look here on the bottom. I'm just going to look at only 2 values. It gets kind of cluttered down here pretty quickly. So we're just going to take throttle position, which is our light blue line right here, and then RPM, which is red. So once again, here we are grinding wide open throttle here in this part of the data log, and our RPM's increasing, and then we're off the throttle and we're back on the throttle. So watch what happens as we go through this. So let's take it from here and see if we can start the data log, or play things in the slowest possible playback speed that we can do. Bring this guy back here. Start again. All right, so we're running up through about 4,000, and we can see our target of about 10.7. We're a little bit rich on it. Let's slow things down, take a little pause here. So at 53.99, so about 5,400 RPM. Our target was 10.6. Bank 1 was running at 10.2. Bank 2 was running at 10.1, so obviously at about 0.4 off of our target AFR. We see short-term fuel trim on both banks was pulling out about 2%. That's consistent with what we saw in our Megalog Viewer. And then O2 state is running. So where are we at? We're right here at this about 17 PSI or so, 5,500 RPM. So right here in the crosshairs, we know that this area we talked about earlier, we're going to just go in here and kind of reduce this by about 3 or 4% and see what that gets us. But so far so good. This is not terrible. And let's keep going. So we're going to keep going up, consistent. We're still running about 10.2, 10.3. And we're going to reach about 6,000 here. I'm going to stop because right about here is where we're about to go and get off the throttle. So what's going to happen next here? We're right there at 61, 36 RPM. Still running at 10.3, 10.2 on a 10.5 target. Everything here remains consistent. We're right there. Let's go a little bit further. And right here is where we are coming off the throttle. So our throttle positions drop down to 6.1%. For the moment, our AFR is not bad, 13.9, 13.0 on a 12.5 target. So, got a little bit lean there for the moment, as we would expect to do. And then we just step just a second further. We're fully off the throttle. And suddenly we're there at 8.9 and 7.1. Still coming down on our RPM, so it's still pretty high. And here's where I think our problem may be at. So look at the crosshairs of the fuel table. This is an area of the map that generally is kind of like one of those areas that we're not typically going to be in, at least not under, under throttle, right? So we're kind of rolling back through the RPMs, we're rolling off of boost, getting more to vacuum, and we're coming down here, but still we're going to source a base fuel of about 74.7%. This may be our problem, don't know, but certainly right here we're running a lot more fuel, at least as a base fuel, than we need to be running. We really don't need to run much of anything here. We're in O2 state of decel, so O2 is not doing anything here to impact our AFRs. We don't have anything about injector duty cycle being recorded here, so I'd like to know what that is, but obviously we are in a deceleration event. So this is where we're going to try to target, do a little bit of work right here, remove fuel from this area, see if that will impact us, because that right now is the only thing that I've been able to point to that's giving us this extremely rich down to 6.8, down to 6.2. We're still sitting right about here, and we're off the throttle. So that's the work we're going to put in. Make these changes here, give it back to a client, go out there, make another run, and see if this is our change. We'll come back in the comments and let you know what we find out. Take care, guys.